Mayor and council members, you're now live on YouTube, and TV30 will count you in.
10 seconds. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Welcome back, everyone, to this continuation of the May 24th meeting of the Livermore City Council. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno.
Here.
Councilmember Carling.
Here.
Councilmember Kick. Councilmember Kick.
Here.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. We closed the public hearing last night on item 5.2, and now we are bringing it back to the council for deliberations. And I want to thank everyone who participated in the hearing last night. A lot of great comments, and I really want to commend everyone for being so succinct and to the point. It really worked well. And as to begin with now, I would like to ask staff to respond to any comments received during the public hearing yesterday that they need to.
Thank you, Mayor. One moment, please. I'm going to share my screen. So thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, City Council. Before we begin, I'd like to revisit the actions that the City Council will be taking this afternoon in the Staff and Planning Commission recommendation. Again, given the applicant's use of state density bonus law, the Council has two primary actions this afternoon: ministerial and quasi-judicial. Pursuant to state law, ministerial approval of each density bonus request is required. Again, we've had the ministerial and density bonus requests listed on the left-hand side of the screen. The Council must grant the density bonus, height increase, and parking relief by right, while incentives are to be granted by right if no findings of denial can be made. For this project, again, staff has found the findings of denial cannot be made, as described in the staff report. Second action for Council's consideration is a quasi-judicial review of items not covered by state density bonus law, including landscape and architectural design. The Council is to determine whether or not the remaining project items are consistent with the general plan, downtown specific plan, and other objective city standards. There are no legislative acts for the Council's consideration this afternoon. Again, both the Planning Commission and staff have found the project is consistent with and implements the general plan, the downtown specific plan, and the Council's adopted downtown core plan. It's for these reasons that the Planning Commission and staff recommend the City Council find the project exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, approve the project, and authorize the city manager to execute an amendment for the Eden Agreement. Next, staff would like to address comments raised prior to and at yesterday's hearing. The city received a letter from Lathan and Watkins asserting that the project is inconsistent with the downtown specific plan. For the record, we'd like to note that the project is consistent with specific plan requirements. The project architecture provides vertical and horizontal articulation, color changes, and architectural details to break down the massing of the building and establish a residential character. The buildings provide primary entries that front onto Railroad Avenue and Veterans Way, and the windows have a vertical orientation or combined groupings of vertical windows. The project provides required private open space, which will be demarcated with signage, fencing, and other appropriate delineators, and the project's public open space will be provided by the project site as a whole by Veterans Park, as allowed by the specific plan. For these reasons, and based on the analysis provided in the staff report, staff recommends the Council find the project to be consistent with the downtown specific plan. In addition, staff would like to address additional questions raised at the hearing. I'll call on 3 individual staff members. And to begin, I'd like to introduce Rick Texon to discuss site contamination and cleanup.
Thanks, Jake. Just mic check. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so as Jake said, my name is Rick Texon, and I'm an associate civil engineer with the city's Community Development Department. I have 24 years of professional experience, 15 years of which were as a consultant developing and implementing site investigation, remediation, and mitigation plans for contaminated soil, groundwater, and soil gas on diverse sites such as active rail yards, roadways, former dry cleaners, and other industrial facilities. With regard to this development project, we note the following related to contaminant impacts. First, subsurface contaminant impacts were a known condition that was previously studied in the 2009 subsequent EIR. Second, no new information or circumstances have surfaced related to existing contaminant impacts at the site. The city is working with the Regional Water Quality Control Board to address existing conditions, following the Water Board's typical process for development of impacted sites. And lastly, the project does not present any unusual circumstances. Although the site is subject to ongoing cleanup activities, that cleanup is not unusual, and it's not an unusual circumstance given the past property use, which included a former lumberyard and train depot, and its location in a downtown area with surrounding commercial uses that have included dry cleaners. Discussions with the Water Board suggest that the contaminant impacts are not alarming, and the planned response being developed in coordination with the Water Board is expected to be routine for such a site, similar to what has been implemented for nearby development projects, such as the Legacy site right across the street. So we hope that clarifies site conditions with respect to contaminant impacts, Jake, and I'll return the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Rick. Next, I'd like to introduce Eric Uranga to discuss project funding.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Uranga, your Assistant Community Development Director and Housing and Human Services Division Manager. Over the last 22 years, I have overseen the financing and development of all the city's affordable housing projects, including many similar to this project. The $14.5 million award from the county to Eden's project will be secured in the form of a residual receipts note. A residual receipts note requires no minimum repayment, which makes its effect on the project similar to that of a grant. This form of funding is the typical method most cities and counties use to provide financing to their affordable housing projects. The city of Livermore will secure its contribution to the project in the same way. Because no payments are required, most people would consider this type of loan a grant. So this is a summary of how the bond financing will be secured by the project. Turn it back over to Jake.
Thank you, Eric. And finally, I'd like to introduce Bob Vinn to discuss parking on the site.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Vinn, your city engineer. So a traffic and parking study was completed for this project. It was done by Fair and Peers, a reputable traffic and transportation planning firm here locally in the Bay Area. And they concluded that this type of project, for this type of project, a 1-to-1 parking ratio is sufficient. Eden Housing, in addition, provided data from some of their existing developments and the amount of parking provided and that they operate. And it also supported the 1-to-1 ratio, and your staff and your city and traffic engineer reviewed this data, and we concur with the conclusions. The 1-to-1 parking ratio will be adequate for this project.
Thank you, Bob. And that concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for any additional questions City Council might have.
Okay, thank you very much. As we begin our deliberations, I'd like to make some initial comments, and then I'll be turning it over to each of the council members to ask their questions and make their final comments. First, planning for this site started in 2003. Since then, and it's nearly 20 years ago, we've repeatedly reached out to get input on this site from the community. Some themes emerged from those conversations with the community, and notably, we should provide adequate parking, we should include open space, and we should include a variety of uses. I believe the plan that we have adopted that includes all of those priorities is a good one. Clearly, not everyone agrees on every element, but I believe that overall, the plan balances those very different visions into a good overall plan. Since we have adopted the plan, we have worked to implement it. We've approved 2 parking garages that will provide over 700 new parking spaces. We've built Stockman's Park. We're starting construction on Livermore Plaza, and we'll begin design on Veterans Park this summer. The plan includes areas for commercial uses, cultural facilities, a hotel, and housing. This project is the next step of implementing our plan. This project that Eden has submitted is consistent with that overall vision we all had input on. With regard to the state density bonus law, I believe it is important to acknowledge Eden Housing's request to apply that law to this project. As noted in the staff report and presentation, the project is 100% affordable within 1/2 mile of a transit station. As a result, it is entitled to specific development standards as a matter of state law. Eden Housing has specifically requested the following items that it has a right to: no maximum density for the project, no parking standards, increased height and massing for the buildings. Even though the project is entitled to those items, Eden Housing project is more modest and responds to the community's input by proposing to do the following: limit the density to 130 units, provide 130 parking spaces, even though none are required, and limit the height to a maximum of 4 stories. The state density bonus law also entitles Eden to request up to 4 incentives. As I understand it, an incentive is a request for an aspect of the project to be relieved from complying with a city standard. Said another way, it is a request to do something that does not necessarily comply with a specific city regulation or standard. As noted in the staff report and presentation, the project complies with the city standards in accordance with the state density bonus law and the Housing Accountability Act, with the exception of the setback standard. The city standards require the project's buildings to be placed closer to the street. However, Eden Housing has requested an incentive to be relieved of that requirement so that the buildings are placed further away from the street to make them more appealing. I think that is a good idea and helps emphasize the residential nature of the project. At this point, I would like to ask my fellow council members for their final questions and comments before we entertain a motion. So I see Vice Mayor Monroe has raised her hand first.
Okay. So thank you very much for getting us started. I'd like to make my position clear. I'm in support of Eden Housing, and I have no questions. Aside from anything else, it's a matter of integrity. This location was purchased for affordable housing with affordable housing funds. Mr. Potter's presentation last night showed the progression of the site from being covered with housing to the current proposal of 130 apartments. Originally, the entire 8.2 acres was intended to have housing. This city has an obligation to respect that reality. That aside, as Mr. Potter pointed out at the beginning of his presentation, the council is highly, and both last night and tonight, the council is highly constrained in its choices. If we find that Eden Housing has met all the requirements to build, we must vote yes. We are being asked to vote in our quasi-judicial and ministerial roles. And yes, this is beating a dead horse, but you know, I'm going to keep beating. That we are not being asked to exercise our legislative, that is our policy role. In other words, I'm simply being asked to confirm that Eden Housing has met the conditions to build. Now, I'm convinced that they have not only met, but exceeded those conditions. And in addition, the city staff has worked to ensure the project is attractive and complements the other aspects of downtown. All of the boxes have been checked. Given that, I'm compelled to vote yes. But I do not want to leave it there with any possible implication that I might do otherwise if I could. This is a development that I fully embrace, and I have since late 2017, when the initial concept of the downtown city plan was being developed. When I ran for office in 2018, the downtown plan was central to my platform. I said then, and I hold to it now, that the collaboration that resulted in the whole plan was remarkable. It was remarkable. It included stockmen, scientists, wine growers, performing arts representatives, teachers, business owners, members of interfaith community, affordable housing advocates, advocates for senior housing. The plan was a shining example of collaboration, and it gave me hope for our future. It still does. That plan had every element this plan does. It hasn't changed. As the mayor said, we have been working steadily along the path to getting it done. Every single element then, including housing, was where it's located now. At that time, there were 130 apartments. There still are, although they're now explicitly for families. Veterans Park ran down the center of the development. It still does. The so-called radical changes to Eden development are the equivalent of adjusting a kitchen remodel. When the price of this counter goes up, the plumbing turns out to be outdated and needs to be updated to great expense, and the desired hardware isn't available. Homeowners who make adjustments aren't fundamentally redoing the remodel. They're engaging in the normal snags that go with any project. The only bait and switch has been perpetuated by the people pretending that housing can or should be moved from a location that has always been reserved for affordable housing. Last night, we heard from over 100 people. Around 2/3 of the comments were supportive of the project. I was moved by those who have experience living in Eden Housing's developments, and others who spoke to the dedication this organization has in not only providing spaces, but in building community and providing support. I was moved by the younger generation who spoke of wanting to come back to Livermore, but of being unable to do so because they've been priced out. Livermore cannot solve the ongoing housing crisis alone, but we can do our part to make our community more possible for all income levels to live here. Now, why does that matter? Communities which enable people to live near where they work are stronger. Communities that are diverse are stronger. When people do not have to commute great distances, they have time to spend with their family and friends and time to spend engaging in community projects. Long commute times contribute to poor health for individuals, poor air quality for all. Last night, we heard from business owners, small and large, who are losing employees who cannot afford to live here. Again, creating communities where people can live and work benefits everyone. Last night, I heard a new take on people commenting, anyone who supports this project is a special interest. The people who do not support this project made very similar points. They support the concept of affordable housing, although they aren't very fond of the real people who live in those homes. They want to park in a location never intended for a park. They want lots of parking, even when parking needs have been addressed. Everyone has a right to hold and voice opinions. However, I fail to see how holding these views are not a special interest of their own. This is an exemplary project that complements the rest of downtown core. I wanted to thank city staff, Eden Housing, and the Dublin Group for their outstanding work and their perseverance. I'm excited to see the development come to fruition speedily in order to provide homes for 130 families. I'm proud to live in a city that supports these homes, and I am deeply grateful to have the opportunity to vote in support of the development.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonanno.
Yes, thank you. First, I really want to extend my thanks to city staff for their efforts on this project over the course of many years now, to our previous councils and many others who established the downtown vision that we're now beginning to see implemented, and to Eden Housing for not only their efforts on this project, but for the other projects they brought to our community and for bringing us this proposal as well. I'd also like to thank the many people in the community who provided input to us last night and also over the past few weeks and even today by email. So it's very clear to me that this is a high quality project which addresses an urgent need for affordable housing. It offers the opportunity for 130 families and individuals who work here to live here. It further implements and is consistent with the original vision for the mix of uses on the downtown site, the vision which was based on expert consulting and which had wide and diverse public input. These parcels have been planned for housing for almost 2 decades and for affordable housing since around 2007 when the city procured the land, so this shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody. Eden's proposal, as Mayor Warner mentioned, is less dense, less tall, and has more parking than allowed under state density bonus law. Allowing for the modifications under the density bonus law, I find this high quality proposal to be consistent with our downtown specific plan, with our general plan, and to all applicable design standards. Staff just a moment ago addressed my questions about the adequacy of parking. As someone commented last night, and I think we might all ask ourselves this question, whether it's worth walking a couple extra blocks so that someone else may have a place to live. This project has lots of centrally located public park space, open space, and if I'm not mistaken, the largest single land use on the west side of these parcels is open space. The west side of the entire parcels that we've been talking about, the west side, the 8.2 acres, the west side is dominated. The largest single land use element is open space. This project took years of careful planning, significant public input, and lots of hard work by many people. Many things had to come together to make this possible. The finances work because we have funding from the county, we have state tax credit financing, and we have a city who owns the land and is supportive of this type of housing. And we're also very, very lucky to have a capable and proven developer as a partner. There is no perfect plan. Another comment we heard last night was, if we were always looking for the perfect plan, we'll always be looking. Our job is to balance the diversity of wants, needs, and opinions across the whole community, and I believe this project does it extremely well. The continued push from some to move this community elsewhere just perpetuates the negative stigma associated with affordable housing. Another comment I received was that this is just a Band-Aid on the affordable housing problem, on the housing problem all overall. Well, I say, let's take this Band-Aid as a beginning. I'm proud of my city and I'm proud to support this project, and I think I will leave it there. Thank you all very much for all your contributions to making this project possible.
Thank you. Councilmember Carling. Or no, I'm sorry, I got the wrong order. Councilmember Kick.
Okay. It's no surprise to anyone watching here that there's a generational divide on this council, because when you started talking about this project, I was 13 years old. And a few years after, my family went from a 2-household income to a 1-household income. And my mom worked at the school district, and she had 2 teenagers, and access to affordable housing like this would have changed her life. So this is my lived experience, and I know that it would have meant a lot to her. And so I think it was pretty clear when I was running that I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing and will continue to fight for affordable housing so that people like my mom don't have to deal with what she had to deal with when she was raising us alone. I do have one question about the project, which I will direct to Mark Roberts. Last night, we saw a rendering of a park. And I want to make it really clear to people that that's simply a rendering, correct? We have not decided on any park design, any actual structures being placed in any specific spots. That's still up for public comment and input, correct?
Yes, Councilmember Kick, you are correct. The design of Veterans Park will start that process of outreach into the community this summer. So we're excited to do that. Exactly where the trees and play structures and grass and turf and walkways will go, all will be just decided as a part of that outreach process, and it'll return ultimately to the council for final approval before we begin to build it.
Okay, thank you so much. And so many people were participating last night, and I really hope that all of them show up in the summer. A concern I heard is that this park in the middle of this housing won't be welcoming to the public. And with integrative park design, you can make any space welcoming. So please come and give your input. I don't want you to stop giving input after last night. I still want to hear what you want in that park, because it really is a public green space. And that's thanks to the work of previous councils. I wasn't here as a voting member during all the legislative process. I was just a regular citizen, and I was supporting it as a regular person, and probably would have voted yes if I had that power. So I'm actually really happy to see all of the compromise and listening that went on, because we get not only green space, not open space. Open space is why we have Measure D. to keep outside of the city open. It's green space and it is for everybody. And we also get a science center and we get a black box theater. I'm really, really excited for people of my generation and younger to grow up with these amenities in our downtown. So I appreciate the work that previous councils have done and thank them for that. When it comes to this project specifically, I am approving it because it's consistent with our general plan. It's consistent with the downtown plan, and it meets all the requirements. And so an important thing that I want to let the public know is that we base our decisions on policy after we make the policy. And then at other times we have opportunities to make policy, and that's coming up soon. We are redoing our general plan. So people that are excited and have strong opinions, I want you to stay involved and come give us your ideas about the general plan. So as we move forward, we can implement that new policy that we will be creating, a very important policy document. So I appreciate all the work that city staff has done. I really get the easy job. I got to come in at the last minute and get to support something that I'm proud to be able to support. But I want to make sure that the past councils and the staff for the past 20-something years gets credit where credit is due, because this is a lot of hard work. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thank you very much. Like my colleagues, I'd like to thank staff and Eden in particular for all the hard work that they've put into this. This has been a long time in coming, and appreciate all the time and the energy that they put into it. I'd also like to thank those who spoke last evening and sent emails to me, and I'm sure to my colleagues, expressing their point of view on this topic. I think I've always said that I appreciate the information, the concerns, and the questions that people share with me. You know, Livermore is a community of an actively engaged citizenry, which is just one reason it's such a great place in which to live. Obviously, the topic last night and today, the Eden Housing Project, is important and consequential to this community for years to come. I think that point was made several times last evening. And just a reminder that the decision before us is to approve the Eden project proposal or not. That's the decision before us today. Let me say up front that I'm in favor of this project, and if you allow me, I'd like to spend a few minutes detailing why I support it. First, as others have said, several years ago, the property at the southeast corner of Railroad and L was purchased with money from the Affordable Housing Fund, and the Downtown Specific Plan identifies multi-family residential housing as a permitted use on this property. So I believe we have a legal and a moral obligation to fulfill our commitment to those decisions set forth some years ago. Every day we hear or read about the lack of housing in California, and our community, Livermore, is no exception. As an example, a recent editorial in the Chronicle was entitled, "The Crisis is Growing, So is the Denial." The editorial states that the median price for a single family home in the state is more than $800,000. In the Bay Area, it's $1.3 million. Think about that. Further, apartment and condominium construction plummeted 17% last year. We need homes for people now on this location. Second point, there's much talk about parking, and I agree that parking is an issue for many, many people. Recall that the City Council in 2018 committed to never falling below the parking capacity at that time. As the downtown has been developed, for example, Stockman's Park and Veterans Way, we, the city, have never fallen below that number established in January 2018. Today, as mentioned earlier, the I Street Garage is underway, L Street Garage will begin in the summer of 2022. And the Eden Housing Project is providing underground parking. The conclusion from staff during the Planning Commission meeting on April 20th was that at the end of the build out of downtown, we will have more public parking capacity than in January 2018. Third, another decision made by the council in January 2018 was in reaction to the public interest to create a large public park in the area designated for housing. Recall that at that time, the conceptual drawing the city council was considering was an above-ground garage surrounded by housing on all four sides. The council recognized that the public would prefer more open space in that area. Hence, the drawing that was created after the January 2018 meeting showed 4 buildings with an open area running between the buildings. It is important to note that this was only a conceptual drawing, since there was no developer for the housing project at that time. Subsequently, staff prepared an RFQ, a request for qualifications, in May 2018. Eden Housing responded, and from several contenders was selected. In November 2018, the City Council authorized the city manager to execute a disposition, development, and loan agreement with Eden for the development of the downtown residential uses in conformance with the downtown specific plan. That was in November 2018. Now fast forward a couple of years. The first time I reviewed the Eden housing design was in December 2020 at a special county council workshop. Since that meeting, Eden has been working with city staff to address the council's desire to maximize open space with a reduction in hardscaping. This has resulted in the design we are considering today. The result, compared to December 2020, is a smaller building footprint with an overall result of a larger public open space and a playground for children. Fourth, let me turn now to who would qualify to rent the apartments or the homes that Eden is proposing. I think the chair of the Planning Commission expressed it best when he said a Livermore teacher supporting a family of 3 would still qualify for housing here after 8 years of employment in the Livermore School District. Think about that they would still qualify after 8 years. Furthermore, city staff has assembled a table showing those eligible for making an Eden apartment as their home. My hygienist, who cleaned my teeth this morning, would be eligible to have a home in the Eden Housing Project. So examples are starting teachers and other employees of the school district, administrative workers in the healthcare industry and our police department, and retail and restaurant employees in our downtown. People we all come in contact with every day who only want a safe, comfortable place to live in our community they call home. Fifth and last, the globe faces an existential threat from climate change. Eden is proposing to reduce its carbon footprint through providing all electric appliances, a composting facility, and the utilization of photovoltaic arrays to generate electricity. Additionally, the development is within a half a mile of a major transit stop to permit tenants easy access to public transportation. In summary, I believe that this project enables the city to make a contribution to the state's regional housing needs assessment for Livermore and shows that we are committed to making progress in the near term. We're meeting the public's desires in addressing community parking needs and providing additional open space for all to enjoy. Our lower income workers in Livermore deserve a decent, comfortable home, close to transit, and other amenities that contribute to a high quality of life. This housing provides that. Climate change is upon us. We need to take action now and the Eden development is designed to minimize the emission of greenhouse gases. Healthy communities are those that enable a diversity of folks to live, work, and thrive in comfort and security. The Eden housing proposal meets that expectation, and I look forward to its completion. And if you allow me, I move we accept staff recommendation. No?
So in a moment, we'll get to the motion and we'll
Okay.
let you do it.
Okay.
So my concluding remarks, I get to
Sorry,
give
I
some.
thought we were concluded. Sorry.
No, I just, that's okay. What I want to say is that I, like my colleagues here, want to thank everyone who's worked over the years, as well as those that have just participated recently to bring this to fruition, and all the people that have recently commented and given us all of their thoughts on this project. And I'm just awed, frankly, by my fellow council members' very eloquent comments on this project and their reasons. I mean, it's fabulous. So I just wish I could be as eloquent, but I'm not. But I want to get to now in my concluding remarks. I want to focus on the essence of the decision before us. And first of all, I find the application of the state density bonus law is appropriate because there are no findings to the contrary. I find that the proposed project satisfies all the technical requirements. That includes the design standards, and it complies with CEQA. 3, it's a quality project that meets the expectations set when the council approved the concept plan in January of 2018. In addition, the city has invested years of effort and millions of housing dollars in this site, and we need to proceed now. Moreover, as my fellow council members have expressed, it's the right thing to do. And therefore, making the decision to approve the project is appropriate. I also like to point out that furthermore, voting no, as some speakers in the public comment period have advocated, would be an absolutely irresponsible risk of taxpayer funds because of the likely risk of lawsuits from outside housing advocates. Associated with this, if we were to capriciously say no, $6.5 million of penalties plus legal fees, as you know, probably getting into the $7 million penalties, would likely be imposed under state law, and then we'd be forced to do this project anyway. The opportunity, as was pointed out, for making a legislative decision to oppose the project has long passed. It's greater than 3 years ago. And if anyone wanted to referend, that's gone. I find that there is no basis for denying the project under the quasi-judicial rules as a result. Finally, to address some of the comments made last night, I'd like to point out that at the end of last year, I proposed a compromise solution to Joan Seppala's committee and expressed that I was willing to work with them to explore an alternative option. I made it clear at the time that was the last opportunity, in my opinion, to seek a compromise. My proposal was summarily rejected by Joan Seppala because she was not willing to compromise. I'll just say that 2 members of her committee, Mark Palachak and Ruth Gaston, can verify what I just said. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the Planning Commission and staff recommendations, and I believe Councilmember Carling would like to make that motion.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I move we accept staff recommendation to move forward with Eden Housing Project as stated. Thank you.
Okay, I see Vice Mayor Monroe has her hand raised.
I second the motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno,
Aye.
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Joyfully, aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. So thanks everyone for all their hard work on this. We're now on to matters for consideration, and that's item 6.1. I want to point out that we are now on this matter and some of the others, we will have opportunity for public comment. We closed the public comment on item 5.2 last night. So could we have the staff report from Mr. Roberts on 6.1?
Yes, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This is Mark Roberts. I'm your city manager and your director of emergency services. And if you'll give me just a moment, I will pull up my presentation and share. Okay. Well, we'll start off with how we're doing on our 7-day rolling average. And so the good news is you can see the blue line there is the County of Alameda. The orange line is the City of Livermore, and both of those numbers are 7-day rolling average per 100,000 population of both the overall county and the city. And you'll see during the last 10 days, the city has had a little bit of a flare up where our numbers crossed over. We had been essentially consistently below county averages for since the beginning of the year. And we're now up above the averages. So while the numbers in absolute terms are still much, much lower than they were earlier in the year, you can see that we still have some work to do both as a county and as a city. So let's move on and do a little more detail on the numbers. So as of May 22nd, our cumulative caseload was 4,297 local cases, and our 7-day rolling average is 3.85. At the county level, you'll see that the 7-day rolling average per 100,000 population is 2.6. So you can see that that continues to place us in the orange or tier 3 moderate area. But there's a couple of really good indicators there. So you can also see that our overall test positivity rate is 1.1%. That's a great number because it gives us an idea overall, combined with the amount of testing that we're doing in the county, that we're headed in the right direction. You can see that our lowest quartile positive test rates at 1.8%. Just a quick minute, Alameda County and the Bay Area in general are doing among the very best in the entire state of California at dealing with our lowest quartile. In other words, those that have the least access to healthcare and have had the highest amount of infection rates in the Bay Area and in Alameda County in particular. Those numbers only differ modestly from the average of the overall population. So kudos to our entire county health staff who've been doing a lot of work there, and to our staff here at the city who have been working to address those populations that need ultimately to get vaccinated the most, making sure that the vaccination is available for those folks. Switching over to vaccinations, you can see here on the chart the community percentages of at least 1 dose and fully vaccinated. And so a quick scan of the numbers shows some good news. Our overall rate of vaccinations continue to rise, so that's good. We now have almost 71% of Livermore residents have had at least 1 dose, and over 57% are fully vaccinated, which are impressive numbers. However, it doesn't take too much to scan down those numbers and figure out that we have moved from the middle of the pack, where we had been within the county, to now near the bottom of the pack as far as vaccination rates overall. So we've crossed over that period of time when access to the broad population was the major constraint. And now it's access to individual populations within the city, as well as reaching out and making certain that people who may have questions about the vaccine get those answers so that we can move forward with vaccinating the overall population. So what are we doing as a city to address that? There you go. You can sort of see the overall numbers, city and county, with county above. So we continue to put word out on our website, social media, and actually good old-fashioned door-to-door flyers in cases where we have local points of distribution. We're coordinating with Stanford Valley Care to develop a homebound vaccination program, taking additional steps forward with that, providing additional local pods in Livermore. We're reaching out to our local faith-based organizations to provide up-to-date information to share with their faith communities, and designing posters and signage to communicate vaccination information. Wanted to give you an update that effective June 1st, that the fairgrounds is going to wrap up giving first doses, and the county is going to be switching its efforts, along with Stanford Valley Care, to putting vaccination clinics closer to people and have those local pods pop up. In the case of Stanford Valley Care, it means that they will be co-locating a vaccine clinic at 1119 East Stanley Boulevard, essentially right where they're doing the COVID-19 community testing location, or for those of us who are a Lifestyles member, right where the health club used to be. And it's going to be an amazing resource for the community with a capacity of over 700 appointments a day. This is an indoor site, not a drive-through. You can schedule it using the My Health app. You can go to our website and find information to drive you to that point as well. And the hours of operation, for the first time, we're extending hours consistently into the evening and providing Saturday appointments as well. We know now that the folks who are highly mobile and highly motivated to get the vaccines, most of those people have been served. Now we're having to deal with folks who work long hours, many days. And so to make sure that folks are not required to disrupt their work schedules or their childcare schedules or any of the other commitments they have, we want to expand the hours in such a way that we can have the broadest possible coverage in the community, and allow people the most convenience in getting that. Walk-in appointments will be permitted at this location. So while we always encourage people to get an appointment, if that's just not possible or convenient, this location, beginning on June 1, will allow walk-ins as well. And as a part of that, there'll be appointments for children age 12 to 17 by Stanford Children's Health. And so this facility is open to everyone who is interested in getting vaccinated. You don't have to be a Stanford Valley Care member to go to this particular clinic. Now, one of the confusing items is, boy, is there a lot of confusion about face masks. Okay, so first couple of things. So let's walk through this, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Until June 15th, the state of California still does officially have some face mask guidance. After June 15th, the state is going to align with the CDC's updated mask guidance. So Alameda County, of course, will continue to align with the state. So a couple questions. When am I fully vaccinated? So essentially it is 2 weeks after receiving either your second dose of Pfizer or Moderna, or after your single dose of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Okay, and so what can you do if you're fully vaccinated? You can spend out time outdoors and indoors with other fully vaccinated folks, spend time indoors with unvaccinated people from a single household, and you don't need to wear a face mask outdoors except when attending crowded outdoor events. Of course, we have heard the guidance that come June 15th, those standards relax even further. So social distancing standards for our businesses will be relaxed at that particular point, meaning that we no longer have to carry out all of our office and commercial activities with at least 6 feet of distance between each other. And in cases where folks are indoors, they'll be permitted to essentially go back to our practices before the pandemic, with the exception of very, very large indoor events. And of course, those are events of more than 5,000 folks. We'll continue to remind people of the changing rules here, but the standards continue to sort of relax little by little. But you saw our most recent numbers there. So when in doubt, probably it's best to keep a little bit of distance in a face mask. We wanted to give you a quick overview on our financial assistance so far. You do know that the council provided $2 million worth of assistance. The vast bulk of that designed to help our local businesses. $150,000 of this overall support was allocated to residential and homeless services as well, so that we provided a wide range of things. And this, of course, was in addition to a total of $400,000 set aside for a variety of residential individual services that were provided to the overall community. You can see there, the bottom line is, if you're trying to add up all of the numbers, that almost all of the dollars that the City Council allocated to our various programs are fully utilized. There still is a little time to get in on the Gift Livermore programs. You can see we still do have a little bit of money. So if you've been holding off to get that $40 gift certificate and get $15 free from the city, or that $75 gift certificate and $25 for free, that free is a great price. Now's a great time to buy those gift certificates. You don't want to be going to the website to be the first person after the money runs out. So we still do have a little bit of money, and that money goes directly into the pocket of the merchant right at the moment you buy that. So that's a great thing to do. You don't have to use those certificates immediately. They don't expire. Of course, we would encourage people to go down and patronize our local businesses. But that's been a very successful program. You can see the other success stories there through our commercial rent abatement, our citywide small business assistance program, and our residential rental assistance program. Together, these really did provide the bridge before the federal and state programs came online and became active. And you can see on this super text intensive slide, there will be a test afterwards, that there is a significant amount of resources available at the federal government and the state government. At the local level, what we've been doing is working with our commercial partners in the community, the Chamber of Commerce, our downtown organization, LDI, to make sure that all of the businesses that are eligible for these programs are aware. In addition, individuals, of course, benefit from a number of these programs. We've heard about all of those, the direct payments from the federal government and from the state government for those who qualify. So significant resources there. So the council did ask staff at your last meeting, were there any parts of the overall program from a financial standpoint that needed additional local resources? We've been working with our partners, and I think at this point, our role should shift to making certain that everyone is aware of the resources that are available at the state and federal program. Our local resources did just exactly what they were intended to do. They helped bridge that gap until these resources came online. And of course, the state and federal government, in particular, the federal government has a lot more resources than we do here locally. We're working with our local businesses to begin the transition to the post-June 15th timeframe. Of course, at the end of May, the last of our tents throughout the community will need to be removed because those are temporary structures, and we've pushed the boundaries of the 6 months about as far as we can at the local level. And as you see downtown and throughout the community, you'll see that those tents are coming down, that umbrellas are coming out, that the outdoor seating throughout the community is reappearing, and a whole lot of folks are outdoors and downtown, out at our outlets and throughout the community, supporting our local businesses. So all of those things are coming back online, and we certainly appreciate everybody in the community giving us a hand during this process, participating in the outreach programs that we have. Appreciate the businesses that have made it through this. And just an interesting stat that our economic development staff have pointed out is we've had more business openings during the COVID emergency than we've had closings. So very good news. We're not quite out of the woods, but we do want to note that we have weathered I think the worst of it, and we're on the right trajectory. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Councilmember Kick.
Could you let me know, might not know this at this very second, where did all the tents come from and where are they going? I just know that we have lots of public cultural events throughout the community, and they tend to rent these tents and they cost a lot of money. And if the city ended up buying some, maybe we should keep some. So if you could let us know what's happening to them.
Councilmember Kick. The city did not actually buy the tents.
Oh,
but
we didn't? Great.
No, we don't own them.
They're going home?
They're going back to, so there's a number of ways. Some of them were rented by businesses, and they'll return back to the rental company, who will then have lots of capacity for those cultural events. Some of the tents were purchased, and some of the purchases used the dollars that you provided as a council to help them make that transition. So there is a mix of that. And so in some cases, the individual businesses will own these, but in many cases, this helped our rental businesses, because not much else was going on the rental front, as you might imagine, during the middle of
I got confused with the fact that we gave money, not gave tents. So
yes, and the thing we didn't want to end up with was 600 tents, that we then owned at the end. That would have been the only thing worse than so. This one ultimately is not coming back to the city.
Okay, great, thanks.
Councilmember Bonanno.
Mark, you went by that slide that I think I asked for about the trend line for vaccinations. Could you go back to that? You went by it so quickly. That's not it. Mark, you're muted. There we go. So, Mr. Roberts, you're muted if you are talking.
There we go. I was not talking, but all right. So there are your trend lines. You can see essentially as recently as March, our overall fully vaccinated rates were trending very much with the county, in fact, slightly ahead of them all the way through April. And then you can sort of see, when we started to diverge.
Yeah, it's probably a little too soon to tell. I find this to be useful. I really appreciate you including it. We can sort of see in just the past week, or the week between the 15th, I can't quite read the number, 15th and 21st, we've already seen a little bit of a leveling off. So I just think it'll be good to keep watching that. And I appreciate the extra effort. It seems like we're trying to work with our partners on making vaccines extremely available. And we'll hopefully start to see those trend lines improve with even better access. I know that Uber and Lyft are offering free rides up to $25, I think, per direction, if I understood it right, on Uber, and $15 per ride on Lyft to go get a vaccine. So I thought that was positive. Hopefully some people know about that as well. I have one more question, and that is, maybe you're not prepared to answer it today, but I would like to hear about at some point, what is the status of the individuals who were provided shelter in the hotels over on Wolf House Road, the Republic Square hotels, that I don't think ever open to the public, to my knowledge, but were housing homeless individuals during the pandemic. And I wonder what's the status of the folks that were there, and how successful are we being moving them into more permanent housing?
So I can bring you more information to that at our next briefing.
That'd
Obviously that housing is part of an overall county-wide program with the objective of actually moving those folks into more permanent and stable housing. And we can provide some numbers on how we've done on those local facilities. Obviously, the intent is not to put people back out on the street after providing this housing. So we'll bring back some numbers at our next briefing for that.
Thank you. That was all I had. Thanks.
Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, thanks again, Mark, for this. Could you, I think we have another day for vaccinations at Robert Livermore Community Center tomorrow. Is that true? Thought they were the
Yes, I believe that is true.
I just think it'd be, if you had the information available, I guess I'd like for you to state what it is so that we can get it out to the public. I think we had on the 20th and the 26th were the 2 days that I thought I remembered reading about.
Yes, that is correct. Mr. Spence, do you happen to have that data? But the 26th, I do recall, was one of the dates that we had.
I guess my point is it'd be nice to be able to, if we could just get that information out now to people, that they could go to Robert Livermore Community Center tomorrow and get vaccinated. And
I'll have to check here and see if that's a second vaccination day or a first. So let me see what I can find here.
well, I thought it was a first, but I may be wrong on that. So if you could check. Let's see, the other question I had was on the some of the commercial rebate. You mentioned that 273,000 out of the 409,000 had been or is being processed. And with 46 applicants, do we have enough applicants to consume all 409,000, or are we still hoping, expecting to get more applicants for the balance between 409 and 273? I'm a little confused on that.
My understanding is that the bulk of the rest of those dollars are in process at this particular point. And so we almost all of those dollars are spoken for at this particular point. And I'm going to give Adam Vandewater a chance to clarify what I just said, but I do believe that that on the commercial rent abatement, we are, and that was the question, correct?
Yes.
We are just working the last of those applicants through the process to do the final payments. Adam?
Yep. Oh, sorry. This is Adam Vandewater, your Innovation Economic Development Director. That is correct. Teresa De La Vega in our office is processing those applications. They do require signed affidavits from both the landlord and the tenant, which has taken some time to deliver. But we are working through. We've received 46 applications to date. We expect a few more to come in, and then you as the council have authorized your city manager to reallocate funds within the various categories as needed. So if there are additional needs or funds that are unspent, we can reallocate them. But as your city manager has presented, we believe we have less than $30,000 total remaining between all of the various programs, given the existing expenditures.
That's good to hear. I don't want it to go unspent because people aren't aware or they're having trouble with the application or something else. But I think that's great to hear that we're moving very close to the total that we had allocated. So, well, that's all I had. Thanks very much.
Councilmember Carling, I did want to clarify, you were correct. Tomorrow at our LCC, we will be vaccinating. Those are first vaccine appointments or walk-ins. Safeway is partnering with us in that process. And we did go ahead and post that on social media yesterday and today. And hopefully anybody who's watching the meeting today, if they know someone, point them toward the RLCC, point them toward our website, because we still do have availability as of tomorrow.
Yes, great. Thank you. And please, if you aren't vaccinated or you know somebody that's not vaccinated, encourage them to go to Robert Livermore Community Center tomorrow and get their vaccine. Thanks again, Mark.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Thanks. So first of all, I would like to give a shout out, an appreciation for the commercial advertisement for Gift Livermore. I feel that in your copious spare time, Mr. Roberts, you probably have a career in advertising. Also, I plan to make use of, go a second round when I have a minute. That said, I have I have two questions, or one shout out and one question. Face coverings. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, this is helpful. But there's still questions remaining in my mind. So first of all, I went downtown to pick up some food. I'm not quite ready to eat in a restaurant yet, getting real close. And the signs are up for still wearing masks, but according to this, I shouldn't be wearing a mask. So, and I don't know who's vaccinated and who isn't. So I'm still confused. When I go for a walk with my husband, both of us are fully vaccinated. He wears a mask because he doesn't want to confuse anyone, and I don't wear a mask because I don't want to confuse anyone. This seems contradictory. Can we print t-shirts? And I'm only being slightly facetious here. Can we print t-shirts that say "I'm vaccinated, hug me" or something, words to that effect? In all seriousness, it's still confusing. And so that's one question. The second one is children. While children under the age of, over the age of 12 are hopefully getting vaccinated at this point, there's a whole bunch who are under, and I'm not quite sure how we handle being around them. So I'm not sure you can answer all those questions, but hopefully you can. So that's one question. Go ahead with that, and then I'll have a second question.
So in outdoor settings, which are not quote unquote crowded, where you would be two individuals walking along a trail and you are fully vaccinated, you are not required to have a mask on. Fully vaccinated people in the outdoors are only required to have masks on in quote unquote crowded situations, which needs a little more definition, but clearly in the example that you gave, you were not in a crowded situation. The downtown either could be or could not be a crowded situation, depending on time of day, location in the downtown, how many people are around you. So there's some discretion involved there. And I think during this stage in particular, between now and June 15th, if everyone can simply keep a positive attitude, because certainly what we don't want to do is, I think people who wish to be more careful should do that. The guidance that the CDC has laid out and the state has laid out are slightly at odds at the moment. We do expect those to come in line with each other on the 15th of June. And of course, at that point, we'll have a lot more clarity and the state will have relaxed their guidance quite a bit. But you are correct. It is a little confusing right now.
Any thoughts about children?
My recollection is on children is there is no special rules, that essentially the rules for unvaccinated people apply to them as well. And again, in many situations or mixed situations, especially outdoors, there is not special guidance on that. But as we have sort of gathering unvaccinated people indoors, the school district is, in the process of sort of figuring out what the rules are for those younger groups in particular, because they have the younger folks from mixed families. Obviously, if young people are from a single family, there are more, you're not required to wear a mask in that case. But for mixed families, the guidance now is still evolving on that. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Okay, and then I really just had a comment about the very dense slide. I really appreciated the very dense slide on the financial assistance. And you're framing that as the city was able to step up when the federal and state funds were not available, and now we get to step back and just make sure that we serve as the conduit between, or the facilitator, whatever words you'd like that work. And since we often see municipal, state, and federal at odds, I thought this was just a really good opportunity to point out when it works well. And this is a time where it seems to be moving towards working well. So yay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to open public comment on 6.1. I think we have 3 in line.
Honorable Mayor, the first speaker will be Lainey Pascal, followed by Kyoko Takayama, followed by Jackie Koda. Lainey Pascal, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, my name's Lainey Pascal. Thank you for the updated information about masking in public spaces. Those of us who are parents of unvaccinated children are looking at that June 15th date when the guidelines relaxed, when the guidelines relax a little bit with some trepidation, I think. And so, I think some of us are wondering what we can expect to see in our city public spaces like the library. And the bus system and things like that. So, we're looking to, of course, CDC guidance, state guidance, but also to City Council to sort of get clarification about, that June 15th date. It's not that far away. So, I think some of us would really appreciate some, like, what can we expect, when we get there. So I just wanted to put that out there.
The next speaker is Kyoko Takayama, followed by Jackie Koda. Kyoko Takayama, please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Kyoko Takayama. Thank you so much for working on this COVID information. I have a question. I know Mark cannot answer, but I see a little bit of uptick on the COVID cases in, I believe, 94550 zip code in May. And I was wondering if you will be investigating what was the cause of that, because this is a little bit unusual. Up to now, 94551 zip code was where most of the cases were originated. So I had some concern. And also, of course, I'm so glad to have Livermore vaccination site in Livermore, where everybody knows where it is. And however, the 94551 zip code is still a little bit behind for the vaccinations. And I would love to see flyers going into the shopping centers and so forth, both in English and Spanish, to actually more visible for the vaccination sites, since more walk-ins are now available. So that's my request. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Jackie Koda. Jackie Koda, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's extremely irresponsible that the city is actually pushing the experimental synthetic injection, especially upon children. In reading of the fact sheet, the EUA of all of the experimental injections, it specifically states on every fact sheet that the experimental injections is a vaccine, quote unquote vaccine, even though it's not, and may prevent you from getting COVID-19. And it specifically says on the EUA, there is no Food and Drug Administration approved vaccine to prevent COVID-19. In fact, I know personally, and just attended a memorial service this weekend for 2 people who have died because of the fact that they got the experimental synthetic injections injected into their body. Furthermore, it is very irresponsible for you guys to be promoting this because of the fact that it specifically states in OSHA, if you require employees to be vaccinated as a condition of employment, then any adverse reaction to the COVID-19 vaccine is work-related. The adverse reaction is recordable if it is a new case under 29 CFR 1904-6 and meets one or more of the general recording criteria in 29 CFR 1904-7. In general, an adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine is recordable if the reaction is 1, work-related, 2, a new case, and 3, meets one or more of the general recording criteria in 29 CFR. So therefore, according to OSHA, recording requirements of serious work-related injuries and illnesses may leave employers with workers' compensation claims and impact to their safety record. So once again, it is extremely irresponsible for you guys to be pushing this experimental synthetic injection, especially on children. Not only do I know 2 people specifically who have died, but I know 10 people specifically who have had adverse reactions, such as swelling of their joints and unable to walk, Bell's palsy, swelling of their entire bodies and admitted to the emergency rooms, headaches, and actual paralysis, and even more adverse reactions that have not been recorded on the VAERS site and CDC. Also, you should know that if you go on the VAERS site, it states specifically over 4,000 people have died from this, and that's only representative of 1% of the population who has been receiving this. Once again, it's extremely irresponsible. And furthermore, we will not mask, we never will mask, and we will not follow your requirements because it is illegal for you to suffocate us as a community. Thank you.
And that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. On to item 6.2 at this point.
Honorable Mayor, this is Mark Roberts. I'd like to introduce our staff person for 6.2. This item is for the Trevano Road Sewer and Water Improvements Assessment District. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Malika, who's going to lead us through the presentation on this.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I am Malika Ramachandran, Acting Assistant City Engineer. My presentation today is on Trevano Road Sewer and Water Improvement in the Proposed Assessment District. The project was developed in partnership with the property owners, NBS, the city's special financing consultant, RJA, the design consultant, the City Administrative Services Department, the City Attorney's Office, and Jones Hall, the outside legal counsel. The existing private sewer and water system that were constructed in 1950 served 12 single-family homes in the LARPD facilities. Property owners have continued to experience numerous problems with the failing system. On November 25, 2019, the City Council appropriated funding and asked staff to evaluate a special financing district to fund the replacement of the failing infrastructures. This was in response to a petition signed by several property owners in August 2019. Trevano Road is located south of First Street and west of North Main Street. The houses on Trevano were built around 1915 by Coast Manufacturing for their president and their officers. In 1976, the houses were sold to local developer and renamed as Trevano Estates and resold to individual homeowners. Built in the arts and craft Bangalore style architecture, Trevano Estates was designated as a historic district by the City of Livermore in 1976. The total of 15 parcels, 12 single-family homes, 1 common use road parcel, 1 LARPD office and classroom, and 1 LARPD parking lot that does not have water or sewer connections. 13 parcels are included in the assessment district. In the future, if LARPD parking lot is developed, it will be wrapped into the assessment district and the assessment adjusted accordingly. Staff and consultant conducted outreach meeting with the property owners from August 2019 to April 2021. Information gathered from this meetings were incorporated into the preliminary design and for the evaluation of the special financing district. Many of the questions from the property owners centered around LARPD participation in a special financing district. The team evaluated 2 special financing options, the community facility district and the assessment district. The assessment district financing is recommended because it will allow LARPD to participate in the district. The CFD exempts government-owned property from special tax. The existing sewer is located on the back of the properties, the green line here, and the water is located, the purple lines in the front of the property. The project will construct approximately 700 linear feet of sewer and water mains, laterals, and 3 fire hydrants on Trevano Road. NBS has prepared an engineer's report that formalizes a special benefit and the general benefit and the method of assessment per parcel. A general benefit occurs when the improvement provides a value to the community. For example, the fire hydrant coverage benefit to neighboring properties and pass-through traffic in the event of a fire. The city is responsible for the general benefit cost, which is approximately $108,000, which is approximately 6.4% of the design and construction costs. Special benefit occurs when the improvement provides a direct value to the property. The calculated total special benefit cost for the assessment district is approximately 1.9 million. The benefit points are calculated based on water meter size, sewer flow capacity, and fire hydrant coverage. All 12 single-family homes and LARPD classroom will participate in both the sewer and water. They receive 1 benefit point for water, 1 benefit point for sewer, and 0.27 point for the fire hydrant. The total assigned benefit point per parcel is 2.27. LARPD office is connected to a separate water system, therefore 0 point for water. The office is participating in the sewer. Since the sewer discharge is 8 times more than the single-family homes, 8 points are assigned. The office also receives 0.27 points for the fire hydrant. The total points for LARPD is 8.27. The dollar value per benefit point is calculated by the total benefit cost to be financed, which is about 1.9 million divided by the total benefit point 37.78, which yields about 50,875. The total project cost is about 2 million, 1.6 million for design and construction, approximately 108,000 in general benefit costs, which is city's responsibility, 358,000 for costs associated with the formation and management of the district. The assessment district will finance approximately 1.9 million. As you can see, there are several steps and action in the formation timelines. The meeting today is for council to consider the initial resolution. The next council action is on July 26, 2021. The city council will hold a public hearing and the city clerk will tabulate the assessment ballots. At the July meeting, the city council will consider the resolution adopting engineer's report confirming assessment, or alternatively the resolution abandoning the proceeding if there is a majority protest. Staff and consultant are on standby to answer any question from the council. I would like to introduce Sarah Myers with NBS and Chris Lynch with Jones and Hall for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Okay, and are there any, I see Council Member Bonanno?
Yes, thank you. I apologize if I missed it, but it's not clear to me where the water for these homes come from now. Is it well, or is it some other source?
They are connected to a water line on First Street.
So they're getting city water. There's city water right now?
Yeah, city water, but there's only 1 meter on the street on First Street.
I see. Okay, so this is just a city system. Their branches are failing, and this is to address that. And is it city sewer as well?
No, this is both the sewer and water on Trevano Road is private system connected to the public system on First Street.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what that means, but I don't think it's actually essential for me to understand what our action is here. So thank you.
So Councilmember Bonanno, Mark Roberts, your city manager. The project does have essentially municipal water, but it is through a privately owned system which is failing. The project would replace that privately owned system with a public water main in Trevano Road, and then only the laterals to the individual homes would be privately owned. So essentially what this project does is pays for that new water main, which will be a publicly owned main and publicly maintained main water line. The same thing with the sewer lines, which are privately owned sewer lines. That'll replace all of those private sewer lines in people's backyards with a sewer main in Trevano Road that will connect out to First Street. So in both cases, the utilities connect out to First Street now. It's just that they're privately owned laterals and systems, and we will be replacing that with a publicly owned set of mains in Trevano Road that the individual houses can then connect to.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. That's it.
Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thanks. Could you explain the voting? I mean, if there are 12 single-family homes plus LARPD, how are the votes weighted?
I'm going to defer this to NBS to answer the question. Sarah?
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. So this is an assessment ballot proceeding. It's an assessment district. And so each property owner is mailed a ballot. The ballot is weighted according to the financial obligation of the property. So essentially the assessment amount for each individual parcel is the value of that ballot. When the ballots are returned, we count up all of the ballots returned in favor. We count up all of the ballots returned in opposition. And if the ballots returned in favor if we don't have a majority protest, and that would mean that the ballots returned in opposition are greater than the ballots returned in favor, then we are able to proceed with the formation.
But each of the 12 individually owned homes are roughly the same?
They are. They have, because they each are receiving the same type of connection as well as the same benefit from the fire hydrant. Each of the 12 single family homes does in fact have the same assessment amount.
So how does it compare to LARPD? Are they going to overwhelm or underwhelm the vote?
LARPD, as Malika mentioned, has a quite a bit higher sewer benefit because of the size of the water line connection to that parcel. So the amount of the total assessment for the LARPD office structure, they actually have 2 buildings on their property. So the amount of the assessment for their office structure is just over $420,000. The amount of the assessment for their classroom structure is $115,000. So their ballot will be weighted at $535,000 roughly, and each individual home has an assessment amount of $115,000.
Okay, so you can actually get a sense of the weighting from those dollar figures there. Okay.
Correct.
And it's 50% plus 1 to approve. Is that what it is?
Yeah, technically it's a lack of majority protest. So yeah, essentially we need 50% plus 1 to approve.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'd like to open public comment on this item at this time.
Honorable Mayor, we have Richard Klinick. Richard Klinick, please unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm Richard Klinick. I live at 78 Trevano Road. So Honorable Mayor and City Council, I wholeheartedly support staff's recommendation that you adopt the 3-part resolution for initiation of the Trevano Road and Sewer Infrastructure Assessment District. I believe that the establishment of this infrastructure project is the only viable way forward. And as staff has confirmed, the old system is decaying and collapsing. So to preserve the Trevano Historic Preservation Heritage District, created by the City of Livermore and dedicated by the City of Livermore in July 1998, we need the system. The old system is dying. This Heritage Preservation District not only has 12 individually owned properties, it is also home to the Livermore Area Recreation and Park District's extended education services. They were actually here before this was subdivided. So their extended education headquarters and their very popular Little House, quote, classroom will benefit from this and will not be able to operate without this public infrastructure project. They would have to shut down. On average, during non-COVID years, 50 to 75 public vehicles per day during the work week travel to and from these LARPD facilities. They maintain a secure 25-car parking lot directly across the street from their offices. LARPD has worked cooperatively with us property owners and the city. I applaud and thank LARPD in the critical endeavor to create the Trevano Road and Sewer Assessment District. Finally, I would like to thank City Manager Mark Roberts, also Jason Alcala, and in particular, project manager Malika Ramachandran, and most of all, Bob Venn, who has worked with me directly or indirectly for the past 2 years. He's provided invaluable technical information and guidance in maintaining a cooperative and fair working relationship between Trevorrow property owners, LARPD, and city management. And I thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes public comment.
Okay, I'd like to close public comment on this item. If there's no further discussion at this point, can I get a motion? Vice Mayor Monroe, I take it you're moving it, correct?
I actually had one point of discussion, and then I would like to move it. And the point of discussion is just that this is the second time I've seen this come forward. The first time had pictures, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. I think it could have gone out of a horror show, and it was a real lesson in what happens when infrastructure fails. Since we as a city are looking at taking care of our infrastructure, I just want to use this as sort of an object lesson in let's make sure we do take care of infrastructure, not only here, but going forward. And so with that in mind, I move staff's recommendation.
And I'll second.
Okay, I moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno.
Aye.
Councilmember Carling.
Aye.
Councilmember Kick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. It passes unanimously. We're on to item 6.3. We have the staff report, please.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, this is Mark Roberts, your City Manager, and I'd like to introduce Associate Civil Engineer Debbie Salgado, who will lead us through the staff presentation. Debbie?
One second. I apologize. I'm on my iPad as my laptop died on me.
And on this one, it does not seem like the screen is sharing. I was wondering if you can unshare, Debbie, and we'll have the city clerk see if we can pull up the presentation and share it. If you'll give us just a moment.
Okay. Did I unshare? I'm sorry.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
All right, and there your presentation is up now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. I will be sharing a very short presentation on this item. Please note that this is an updated presentation with some corrected information. Next slide, please. Community Facilities Districts, or CFDs, are a type of assessment district that provides a funding mechanism for cities and counties to collect funds for new development, infrastructure, or maintenance. Property owners within the district are assessed annually based on their proportionate share for either construction or maintenance, depending on the level of benefit that the property receives from the improvements. A non-bonded CFD is typically formed to provide maintenance funds in perpetuity for public infrastructure and facilities. This new CFD is a non-bonded CFD. An advantage of a CFD is that the district is not limited to maintain just public landscaping, as is the case with a traditional landscape maintenance district. CFDs can be used for either residential or commercial properties. Next slide, please. To form a new CFD, it takes at least 3 city council meetings to do so. The process includes a public hearing and election where ballots are counted for district formation and can typically take 3 months to form from start to finish. The cost to form a new CFD can range from $10,000 to $40,000, depending on the complexity of the district. New properties can annex into an existing district, but it requires the same process to form a new CFD. Some features that are unique to this new CFD are This CFD will be made up of various zones, each for a specific development project. The CFD boundary includes a future annexation area that coincides with current city limits. The annexation process is simplified and only takes one council meeting to process and will typically take 1 month to process from start to finish. This process still includes a public hearing, but no election because each new property will provide a consent to annexation. The cost to annex into this CFD will be about $10,000 per new zone. This cost savings to annex is significant as opposed to forming a new CFD, and the simplified process also utilizes less staff resources. Next slide. So for the first zone that'll be part of this annexation district, it's for the Prologis project. The Prologis project was conditioned to install a multi-use trail, a bioretention area, and public landscaping. Prologis was also conditioned to provide funding for maintenance of these public improvements. To meet this condition, Prologis has chosen to participate in this maintenance CFD. This is the proposed boundary for the CFD for Zone 1, as shown in the inset, is the boundary for the Prologis project located at the southwest corner of Isabel and Jack London Boulevard. The future annexation area coincides with city limits. By setting up the CFD boundary in this way, future zones can be easily added to the district. Each zone within the CFD will have its own budget and assessment in accordance with the public infrastructure that is installed within the zone. Next. The formation schedule for this CFD is as follows. May 24th, which is now May 25th, adopt a resolution of intention to form the CFD that will set the date for the public hearing and directs the city engineer to prepare a CFD report. July 12th, the public hearing to conduct a CFD election. If the election is successful, a resolution of formation is adopted, followed by the first reading of an ordinance to levy the special taxes. June 26th, adopt an ordinance to levy the special taxes in the CFD. And finally, August 10th is the deadline to file special taxes for the CFD with the Alameda County for fiscal year 2021-22. This concludes the presentation. Staff is available for questions along with our CFD consultants from Jones Hall and NBS Government Finance Group.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Don't see any. Do we have any public comment on this item? I'd like to open that.
Mayor, no comments have been received.
I'll close the public comment. Well, thank you for the presentation. Anyone want to make a motion? Councilmember Kick.
I actually do have one question. Mark, can you give an example of what types of amenities would qualify in the CFD and what wouldn't? The examples that you gave me would be helpful, I think, for people that might be confused.
Typical improvements that would be included in a community facilities district are improvements which are owned by the public, but provide special benefit to a neighborhood or a business. So for example, frontage improvements like a trail, backing lot landscaping, stormwater improvements that would benefit a particular property or a particular neighborhood are all examples of types of things, specialty lighting and other items. This would not, of course, deal with maintenance and or improvements that are on private property. So essentially, this would not be used for private landscaping maintenance or other items. So these are items that are owned by the public, but adjacent to and provide special benefit to adjacent private property.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And I'll move that we adopt staff's recommendation.
And Vice Mayor Monroe?
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno?
Aye.
Councilmember Carling?
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. Thank you very much for the work on this. And we're on now to item 7, council committee reports and matters initiated. So we'll start with council. Let's see, where do I forget where I started. Councilmember Kick, I believe.
Yes. It's been a long 2 weeks. So what I wanted to share was that I got to go to the grand opening of Goodness Village, which was fantastic. And that we will have a bus stop there someday soon. Wheels is still working on that. And I did have something else that I was going to report out, but I don't remember. I did write everything down in in my report out document. If anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and check it out. Oh, we approved the EIR for Valley Link. That's what it was, which is very exciting because yay trains. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, where do we go next? Councilmember Carling.
Thank you. Yeah, like several of my colleagues, I also attended the ribbon cutting for Goodness Village, and it's just going to be a spectacular opportunity for housing some of our unsheltered folks that are desperately in need of not only the housing, but also the community that's going to be built up around those 28 tiny homes. If the public is not familiar, this is on the Crosswinds Church property, and it's just a spectacular opportunity for our community to help the unsheltered that reside in our community today. So thank you. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Bonanno.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Just to pile on to the Goodness Village grand opening, I'll just say that I learned that there is a public volunteer opportunity on June 19th at Goodness Village. All volunteers are welcome to work on some additional projects that they have going there. I don't know the details, but you could contact Kim Curtis at Goodness Village or Karen, who's coordinating the volunteer activities. I know they need and will continue to need volunteers, and I know they have additional plans for that site that I know they're going to want to be building out community facilities and things. So I thought it was a great grand opening, but I also feel like we need to not think our work is done in supporting that community. Did want to mention something. We had a LAVMA, Livermore Amateur Valley Water Management Agency JPA meeting a few days ago, and what I think will come back to the council in July, I believe, is they are going to be refinancing their debt, and that will result with agreement of the joint power partners, which is City of Pleasanton, Dublin San Ramon Water District, and City of Livermore. We will gain about $400,000 to the City of Livermore every year as a result of that refinancing. I think they are already working with our staff on arranging for that to be probably a consent calendar item, I would guess, but so that's good news there. Council member Carling and I also had a meeting with the climate folks at Sandia just yesterday. We had our staff, Tricia Ponto, and our consultant, Rincon, review the climate action plan with some of the senior managers at Sandia. In fact, we had the acting lab director, Andy McElroy, and others that Councilmember Carling previously worked with at Sandia. And again, it was a really good meeting to sort of just communicate our goals as a city to some climate scientists and managers at Sandia, just like we did with Livermore. We are going to continue to possibly pursue areas where we might do some collaboration. I think this is very early work that's just, we're just in the exploration stage on both of those fronts, but I think it's very exciting, and appreciate working with Councilmember Carling on this, and we will continue to report out on what's happening there. And that is all I had. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Monroe.
Hi. So I have first a question. A point of clarification. Yesterday, during there seems to have been some concern about the consent calendar and how that was handled, particularly around item 4.8. And so I'm wondering if staff could both clarify the process for how one makes comments at at the consent calendar, which is normally just done as one piece, and then clarify the policy around item 4.8, which was the request to fly the pride flag. I believe that that's part of a process that we initiated in 2019. If you could take it from there, thank you very much. And then I also have a comment about Goodness Village. So.
Vice Mayor Monroe, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager. You are correct. The consent calendar is a collection of items which are routine in nature and are acted on generally by the council in a single motion. And you traditionally take testimony on all of the items on the consent calendar as a single entity, allowing people to speak on any of those items through a single call before the council considers them and generally takes action on them as an entire group. Item 4.8 yesterday had to do with your commemorative flag display policy. At your September 23rd, 2019 council meeting, the city council adopted the commemorative flag display policy. The policy allows a council member to request the display of a commemorative flag at the Civic Center campus on the Livermore City flagpole beneath the City of Livermore flag. Once a request has been made by a council member, the council is going to consider that request at a duly noticed public hearing. While the First Amendment's free speech clause limits the regulation of private speech by a governmental entity, it does not restrict the government when the government speaks for itself. The government speech doctrine, as defined by the United States Supreme Court, provides the government can advance its own speech without requiring viewpoint neutrality when the government itself is the speaker, so long as the government does not show religious preference or encourage a certain vote in an election. Your adopted policy is structured to ensure that any commemorative flags flown would be considered governmental speech. At your May 10th council meeting, Councilmember Kick requested to display the Philadelphia rainbow flag, pride flag, for the month of June 2021 in order to commemorate Pride Month. That item was placed on your May 24th consent calendar as item 4.8, and that item was approved along with the consent calendar by the City Council yesterday.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. With that, I was quite a busy couple of weeks, but fortunately, I reported most of that out on the supplemental materials. I did want to make a couple of final notes on Goodness Village. It was a really good afternoon, but I wanted to just speak a little bit to the process by which we got there, which began as part of the subcommittee that Councilmember Carling and I serve on, the homelessness subcommittee, where we saw the examples from Austin, the Austin village, a similar type of village. Crosswinds Church had land. The county had money. We made the match to the tune of $3 million from the county, which we are very grateful for. And then it was necessary for the city to really do some heavy lifting to make this happen very, very quickly. So I wanted to thank Crosswinds Church. I wanted to thank the city. I wanted to thank former Supervisor Haggerty for his effort, all for the efforts on this. And then going forward, hoping that this will continue to be a collaboration. In order to get the work done, there are all kinds of people who put effort in. If you go to the Goodness Village website, you can see what the construction partners were for that. As others have said, there's still opportunities going forward. This is a remarkable project in that it is not just a bunch of homes stuck on a site. It is complete wraparound services, which are designed to care for those who need care, and move people up and out of homelessness as quickly as possible, and as possible being the operative word. It is an incredible model. I am so proud of Livermore to be part of what is making this go forward. It was a marvelous day to see this open, and I'm just again, it's grateful that we can be part of the community that hosts this village. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to build on the Goodness Village comments. I took a tour a while ago with Councilmember Bonanno. It's very impressive. And I would like to also put in the pitch for people to go there, see it, and figure out ways they can help. I think although it has the seed money from the county and the help from the city, they're going to need more to keep it going well. And so I would ask everybody to take a look, and I think it's a very worthy cause. The other thing I would want to mention, Councilmember Kick remembered, but I was going to mention the EIR approval for Valley Link. That was a significant step. And I'd also mention along with that, there's serious looking at the hydrogen powering alternative for that. I see there's a hand raised, but we don't take public comment on item 7. Just want to check with the city attorney that in our rules, we don't.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we are now adjourned to a regular city council meeting on June 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And it will be held virtually using Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.